Hi friends, welcome to my YouTube channel SS Analysis. First of all, I would like to tell you that if you are watching this video first time, subscribe my channel to see my more upcoming videos on analysis of different commodities and equity indices. And second important thing is to watch this video till its end to understand this thoroughly to take your decision. Your one like will motivate me to be regular in working more hard for you. Let us start the day to analyze the movement of S&P 500 futures in different time frames. So friends, here you can see a daily chart of S&P 500 futures where we witnessed a sharp fall in S&P 500 futures on Friday. As you know, most of the major indexes of the world fell from the record highs on Friday after a US airstrike, enhanced tension in the Middle East, and a bigger than expected contraction in the US manufacturing sector raised concern of slowing economic growth in the US. So Friday's decline put snapping a 5-week winning streak for the index. Here I find that I could have sensed this fall very much in advance while I was recording my previous video on S&P 500 futures and the movement of gold futures. So let me take you there why I felt this fall in advance while the S&P 500 futures had already entered into the overbought territory on November 11, 2019. So let me take you there. So friends, here you can see a daily chart of a comparative move of S&P 500 futures and the gold futures. Here you can see that since November 11, 2019, here you can see that the gold started to have an unusual relation with S&P 500 futures since November 11, 2019, when the S&P 500 futures entered into the overbought territory and caused this immediate resistance. Here you can see that the gold futures too started to move upward since November 11, 2019. Here we can see that the gold futures were constantly moving upward along with the S&P 500 futures. Here I felt some doubt on the movement of S&P 500 futures because this unusual correlation was indicating an upcoming fall in the US equity markets when the gold futures were taking a sharp upward move till the New Year Eve, when we found the gold futures have taken a sharp upward move above the levels of $1515. Then I felt that something going to be serious very shortly, and the same thing happened on January 3rd, 2020, when the US launched an airstrike on Iran, which resulted in the death of a general of Iran. And since then we have seen that a sharp downward move in S&P 500 futures on January 3rd, 2020. Here we can see that the S&P 500 futures touched the lows of 3206 before taking a reversal and finally closed at 3235. Here I find that the data from the Institute for Supply Management showed that the US factory activities contracted in December by the most in more than a decade. There is no doubt that we are going to see the continuation of a steep fall in S&P 500 futures along with the other major equity indices of the world, because here you can see that the gold futures have started to move upward and have caused the levels of $1550, where I find that this steep upward move in gold futures indicate the continuation of this steep fall in global equity markets. Friends, here I would like to show you that what ensures me the next equity slump before March 2020. This is what I have already concluded in one of my previous videos on next market crash. Here I would like to tell you that what ensures me that the S&P 500 futures started to take a nosedive move, what ensures an advent of a downward trend up to this crash zone during the month of March 2020. So friends, this is a monthly chart of S&P 500 futures which I constructed in June 2018 to study the previous two market crashes. Here you can see that during the year 2008, when the S&P 500 futures touched this blue line here, we have seen a nosedive move in S&P 500 futures when the S&P 500 futures touched the new lows. So now let me zoom this portion for you to see that how this works. Now let us see here in the monthly chart that when the S&P 500 futures tried to break this blue line during the month of June 2007 and constantly attempted to break this level. But finally, when it touched this blue line on October 1st, 2007, here you can see that the S&P 500 futures started to take a downward trend which continued up to February 2009 when the S&P 500 futures found some support at these levels, and since then we have seen some recovery in the S&P 500 futures. So here I would like to mention that whenever the S&P 500 futures try to break this blue line, it confirms that the S&P 500 futures have crossed the overbought territory and ready for a downward move. Now here let us see that how the S&P 500 futures have once again touched this blue line on January 2nd, 2020. Let me zoom this portion for you. Here you can see that this formation of a shooting star in a monthly chart in the beginning of January 2020 confirms an advent of a downward trend in the S&P 500 futures, where I find that shortly we are going to enter amid this crash zone during the month of March 2020. Here I find if the S&P 500 futures find a gap down opening on the first trading session of the upcoming week, we will see the S&P 500 futures to continue this downward move during the upcoming months. And here I find if the S&P 500 futures break these strong support levels, first at the levels of 2719 and second at the levels of 2323, and here I find if the S&P 500 futures beat the immediate support at the levels of 3063, I find a sustainable move below the levels of 2906 will attract more bears to take short positions below these levels, and the S&P 500 futures will continue to move downward up to this crash zone, and I find that shortly we will see the next crash of 2020, and shortly we will see the S&P 500 futures to move inside this crash zone during the month of March 2020. Now let us see this move in a daily chart. Friends, here you can see the movements of S&P 500 futures in a daily time frame. Here you can see that the S&P 500 futures tried to break this resistance but could not at the levels of 3263, where I find that the S&P 500 futures have found stiff resistance above the levels of 3253, where I find that a downward move up to the levels of 3206 confirms the continuity of a downward move during the upcoming week, where I find that a gap down opening below the levels of 3220 will confirm the continuity of a downward trend during the upcoming week. So friends, this is my expected trading zone for the period from January 6th to March 16th. Where I'm expecting the S&P 500 futures to take this downward move up to the levels of 2849, where my stop loss levels will be at the levels of 3379. Here I would prefer to go short with my targets at the levels of 2860 up to March 16, 2020. So friends, here I find that for an uptrend, the S&P 500 futures will have to sustain above the levels of 3206 during the upcoming week. Here I find that above the levels of 3285, there is a thick presence of bears, where the S&P 500 futures may take a nosedive move up to these levels. Here I find that a sustainable move below the levels of 3169 will push the S&P 500 futures to continue this downward trend up to these levels, and I find if the S&P 500 futures breach the levels of 2858, no doubt that the S&P 500 futures will enter into the economic slump of 2020. We'll see the S&P 500 futures may take more downward moves during the upcoming months. So friends, be ready to see an action in S&P 500 futures during the upcoming months. So thank you friends, thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, don't forget to share this video with your more and more friends. Thank you.